It was one of those perfectly ordinary afternoons where you expect nothing more than a quick errand, a quiet drive home, and maybe some time to relax, but in a blink, it turned into something out of a bizarre reality TV show that I didn't sign up for. The sun was warm, the parking lot was calm, and I had just finished grocery shopping, tossing the last bag into the passenger seat before sliding into the driver's seat myself. I wasn't in a rush, so I sat there for a moment, doors unlocked, scrolling through my phone to check a couple of messages before starting the engine. That's when it happened. This woman, probably in her late 40s with a stormy look on her face, suddenly appeared at my driver's side door and slammed it shut, trapping me inside. I was still processing that when she darted to the other side, leaned in through my open passenger door, pressed the lock button, and shut it firmly. For a second, my brain froze as I sat there in stunned disbelief. Who in the world does that? I rolled the window down halfway, trying to keep my voice calm, and asked, "Excuse me, what are you doing?" Her expression was pure accusation, her arms crossed tightly as if she had caught me in some grand scheme. She glared at me and declared, "You're not going anywhere until we clear up what you did in that store." My jaw literally dropped. I had no idea what she was talking about, but her tone carried the kind of confidence that made it seem like she thought she was a police officer or some kind of parking lot security captain. I looked around, half expecting the camera crew to jump out, because the whole thing felt so unreal. But nope, just curious strangers watching from nearby cars. I repeated that she must have the wrong person, but she didn't even flinch, like she was convinced beyond doubt that she had caught me. That was the moment I realized this wasn't going to be a quick conversation, and whatever game she thought she was playing, I was about to be dragged into it whether I liked it or not. Karen, as I decided to call her in my head, was absolutely convinced she had just caught the criminal of the century, and apparently that criminal was me. She stood there with a look of triumph, like she had uncovered some grand conspiracy, and loudly accused me of shoplifting. I couldn't help but let out a short, nervous laugh, partly because the accusation was so ridiculous, and partly because I thought she was joking. "You've got the wrong person," I told her firmly, but she shook her head with absolute certainty, like she had just solved a mystery no one else could see. Then she hit me with something straight out of a bad TV drama. She claimed she had seen me slip an item into my bag and that she was going to make a citizen's arrest right there in the middle of the parking lot. I was caught between being confused, annoyed, and slightly amused, but mostly I was thinking, this woman really believes she's some kind of hero. I asked her to step away from my vehicle, but she stood her ground like she owned the asphalt beneath her feet. Then, as if she wanted to document her supposed heroic deed, she whipped out her phone and started recording me, zooming in like she was collecting evidence for some imaginary court case. My embarrassment started to grow because people in the lot were beginning to slow down, watching the scene unfold. I could feel my cheeks getting warmer, and not from the sun. She began pacing around my car, peering through windows and positioning herself so that I couldn't open any door without running into her. It was bizarre. She genuinely seemed to believe she was on some undercover mission to protect the store from me, a random guy who had just paid for his groceries like any normal person. The whole time, she had no idea that the store's security system had already caught everything from start to finish, and those cameras were about to expose just how wrong she was in the most humiliating way possible for her and the most satisfying way possible for me. Karen was still circling my car like some overzealous parking lot detective when I noticed the store manager walking quickly toward us with a security guard at his side, both wearing that mix of concern and annoyance you see when they know a situation is about to be messy. It was obvious someone had gone inside to alert them about the spectacle happening outside. The guard approached first, politely but firmly asking Karen to step back so I could get out of my car, And only after he distracted her by asking a question about her evidence did I manage to unlock the door and step out. The manager, calm but authoritative, looked directly at Karen and said, "Ma'am, we reviewed the store's camera footage, and this gentleman did not take anything without paying." You could see the disbelief spread across her face like she'd just been told the earth was flat. She blinked several times, lips tightening, and instead of apologizing or even looking embarrassed, she doubled down with a smug scoff, claiming, "The manager must be covering for me, because, in her words, I looked suspicious." The guard's patience was clearly thinning, and he warned her to stop causing a disturbance, but Karen wasn't ready to give up the spotlight. With an air of self-importance, she announced she was going to come inside with us to prove her point once and for all. It was almost comedic watching her march alongside the security guard, convinced she was about to expose some big scandal. We reached the back office where the surveillance monitors were, and that's when the twist of the day landed. As the footage played, showing me calmly shopping, paying at the register, and leaving with my receipt in hand, Karen's posture shifted from aggressive to frozen. Her eyes darted between the screen and me, her mouth slightly open, but no words. Foaming, she had nothing, no excuse, no apology, just stubborn silence. And as fate would have it, the next words out of her mouth would lead to the part of this story she never saw coming. Karen stood there stiffly, refusing to meet anyone's eyes as the manager replayed the footage from different angles, each one proving beyond doubt that I had done absolutely nothing wrong. The sound of the register beeping, the clear view of me placing my items on the counter, handing over my card, waiting for the receipt, and walking out calmly, it was all there. Undeniable. She shifted from one foot to the other, her face flushing, but still, no apology came. Instead, she muttered something about not trusting people who act too calm, which only made the room more awkward. She clearly wanted to leave, but the manager, following protocol, asked her to sign a brief statement about the incident for store records. She sighed dramatically, grabbed the pen, and wrote down her name. That's when my stomach did a little flip. That name, I knew that name. It wasn't common, either distinct enough that there was no mistaking it. I glanced at her again, suddenly connecting the dots. I worked in HR at a mid-sized company downtown, and she was an employee there. Not just any employee, she was currently on a final written warning for inappropriate behavior toward coworkers. The memory of her last HR meeting flashed in my mind. Her loud objections, her dismissive attitude, the way she had argued with the department head. Now here she was, doubling down on the same confrontational behavior, but in a grocery store parking lot. I felt a strange mix of disbelief and amusement settling in. The manager noticed my sudden change in expression and asked if I was okay. I gave a calm smile and said, "Oh, I'm fine. In fact, I'll be seeing her at work very soon." Karen's head snapped toward me, and for a split second, I could see the panic flicker across her face before she quickly masked it with a tight, forced smirk. But I knew, and she knew I knew, that this little parking lot drama was about to follow her somewhere she really didn't want it to, straight back to her job. That Monday morning, I walked into the office with my usual coffee in hand, not sure if Karen would even remember me after the chaos she caused in the parking lot. But the second I stepped into the break room and she turned around, the look on her face told me everything. Her eyes widened like she'd just seen a ghost, and the coffee cup in her hand froze mid-air. I gave her a polite smile and introduced myself, making sure to add that I was the HR representative she had spoken to during her onboarding. She blinked rapidly, trying to regain composure, and mumbled something about a big misunderstanding in the parking lot, but it was too late. The wheels were already in motion. Over the weekend, I had written a full incident report, attaching the store manager's signed statement and the security footage that showed every moment of her locking me in my own car and falsely accusing me. Our company's policy was crystal clear: harassment, public misconduct, and unlawful detainment were all serious violations, especially when they involved someone representing the company in public. Her file was already thick from previous warnings, and this incident tipped the scale completely. I stayed professional, keeping my tone neutral, but inside, I couldn't help but feel a wave of poetic justice wash over me. By Wednesday, she was called into a formal HR meeting with the department head and me. She tried to downplay the situation, claiming she was looking out for the store and had mistaken me for someone else, but the evidence was impossible to argue with. 2 days later, her employment was officially terminated. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Unfair Stories. Because here, we tell the stories the world wants to hide.